Good morning, everyone. This is the Committee on Corrections, Military, and Veterans. We're here in the State Capitol in conference room 430. It's Wednesday, March 16th, 10 a.m. And we're joined here in person and also via video conference to hear a number of bills. To those folks who are here to testify on these bills, I have a pretty long agenda and a lot of testifiers. Many of these bills we heard last month. So I do ask that if you are here to testify, I appreciate it if you keep your comments confined. We have a little bit limited amount of time this morning to get through all these bills. And once again, we did hear many of these bills just last month. So without further ado, let's try this new system out. First up, we have the judiciary. We have Senate Bill 2641, and we have the judiciary providing testimony in support. We have DHS providing testimony in support. We have BNF providing comments. We have the Women's Prison Project providing testimony on this bill, Senate Bill 2641.
Thank you. You have a written testimony, and I'm just going to highlight 3 points. One is that many women who are incarcerated could easily be managed within community-based programs with court supervision, and this has been proven in many other states because the majority of incarcerated women are there for drug-related offenses, including property crimes that are drug-related and are nonviolent offenders. The next point I want to make is that there are serious detrimental effects on children whose mothers are incarcerated, and these include developmental problems, behavior problems, and health problems. And this could be avoided by children being able to reside with their mothers in community-based rehabilitation programs. And then the last point I want to highlight is that this bill includes furlough programs, and it's actually public safety that funds those programs, not the judiciary. So in terms of the appropriation, some money for furlough programs would actually need to go to public safety, where the other rehabilitation programs would go to the judiciary. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you very much, Ms. Rich. We have further testimony from the Community Alliance on Prisons and the Hawaii Substance Abuse Coalition. We have testimony from, it looks like maybe a half a dozen individuals in support, as well as testimony, it looks like, coming in from the ACLU of Hawaii in support, and two more individuals also in support of Senate Bill 2641. That's all the testifiers I have for 2641. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify on Senate Bill 2641? If not, members, any questions? Moving on, thank you. 2771, Senate Bill 2771. First up, we have PSD. Good morning.
Hi, good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, committee members. Max Otani, Department of Public Safety. We would stand on our written testimony offering comments on this measure. However, we'd like to point out that currently the department uses the Ohio Risk Assessment System pretrial assessment tool, better known as the RSPAT. And it has not been validated on the female population, although we use it for the female population on the pretrial side. If there is a possibility that this tool a study could be done on this tool to determine how effective it is in predicting or to be used as a pretrial risk assessment on females. But there would be a cost factor in that to conduct the survey. In addition, if we were to use it, there may be some additional factors down the road to norm and validate the instrument to the female population. Yes, basically, yeah, That's all I have. I'll be available for any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. We have further testimony from the Oversight Commission, the Hawaii Correctional System Oversight Commission.
Good morning, Chair Ono,
Morning.
members of the committee. Thank you for this opportunity. The commission stands on its written testimony, and we'd just like to say that in our mandate to look at and help develop with public safety a comprehensive reentry plan, we believe that an assessment to gender specific just for the females with their characteristics and unique experiences as females could be very positive in beginning the journey of reentry from the beginning of the system in pretrial. Yeah, getting them in diversion programs earlier and then preparing a journey through the system as we work on their issues. So I'll be standing by for any further questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have the Women's Prison Project, testifying Senate Bill 2771.
Thank you. As you've heard from us many times before, women's pathways to crime and to incarceration are very different than those of men, and so are their needs. We would like to point out that there are already several well-researched and validated women's risk and needs assessments that identify women's unique needs as well as their strengths, and they are available and in use in other states. And we would be very happy to provide the information regarding those assessment tools. Other than that, and also I would note that the information from those risk assessments would also be very important in the pre-sentencing phase, not just the pre-trial phase. Other than that, I stand on our written testimony. Thank you so much, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you. We have testimony from the Hawaii Substance Abuse Coalition in support, and testimony from two individuals also in support of this bill. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify on Senate Bill 2771? Okay, members, any questions? Vice Chair.
Good morning, Mr. Patterson from the Oversight Commission.
Good morning, Representative Gannigan.
Hey, sorry, we're in the room here. I'm looking to my right because I can see you on the TV and not on my screen here. Is this new risk assessment going to be included in forthcoming discussion of bail reform? So there was much discussion over the Ohio system and ORISPAT in the HCR 85 task force report. Should this bill move forward parallel to the bail reform bill that is moving through the Senate, will that be included, or is this redundant?
I'm not sure if it will be included, but it does make sense that it be a part of any bail reform, as the risk assessment is an important tool for the decision makers, judges, prosecutors, attorneys, likewise, yeah, and how to manage the case that's before them. So I believe that there is some correlation, but I wouldn't be able to tell you exactly how that looks like.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Further questions, members? I've got a question for PSD. Good morning, Director. You heard a number of people testify that female pretrial risk assessment would be beneficial, and that other states have done similar work. I hear you also say that we already have a product for this. What are some of the challenges in implementing some of the other states' solutions for this, in addition to what you're doing already?
Chair, we would have to really look at the assessment itself. We know there are risk assessment for female offenders in general. Ohio, I think the University of Cincinnati also put out a risk assessment a while ago for female offenders in general, but it's basically measuring risk needs for case management purposes. Normally, risk assessments for pretrial is real quick assessment that measures public safety as well as flight, meaning that the person's ability to return to court. So usually the pretrial risk assessments are really short in nature because in most cases we need to generate the bail report for the judges at initial court hearings. Some of the other assessments, such as the LSI itself, has 52 questions that, takes approximately an hour to 2 hours to complete. And there's a lot of skills involved, certification to ensure that the validity of the instrument itself and integrity of the person interviewing is correct. So if we do adopt a new risk assessment, there is training that's going to be involved. And even data systems and collecting the instrument would have to be reformulated at this time.
Thank you. Thank you, Director. Okay, further questions? Senate Bill 2771. Thank you, members. Moving on, we have up next Senate Bill 2774. And we have testimony once again from PSD. Restorative circles.
Yes. Hi, good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, committee members, Max Otani, again, Department of Public Safety. We would stand on our written testimony supporting the intent of this measure. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. We have testimony from BNF offering comments, from the Community Alliance on Prisons offering support on this bill. Okay. The Hawaii Substance Abuse Coalition testifying in support. And we have testimony from the Women's Prison Project and the Hawaii Friends of Restorative Justice on this measure, Senate Bill 2774.
Hi, I'm Lauren Walker for both of those organizations, and we strongly support this. And I think we've already said everything, unless there's any questions. Thanks.
Thank you very much for joining us. We have testimony from 5 individuals on this measure, also all in support. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify on Senate Bill 2774? Okay. Members, any questions? Okay, I've got one quick question. Director, good morning.
Yes.
I did read your testimony and you mentioned that these restorative circles may be better as diversion, a jail diversion practice rather than after they enter your facilities. Can you speak on that a little more?
Yeah, and the whole idea is to reduce the population. And if the circles are successful with inmates in the facility, it could be successful with, for example, probationers that had because the probation population, as reported in our jails, probation violators take up a good portion of our beds in our jails. So if this program is successful with offenders in general, then it could help with our jail population as well.
Okay, understood. Thank you very much. Further questions, members? 2774. Rep. Kobayashi.
For PSD, your testimony says that you had one restorative circle conducted in fall of 2021. Is it your anticipation that you will do more, or was this a one and done kind of experiment?
2021 was because of the pandemic, we were limited as to access into the facility. So with things easing up and situations getting better in the prisons, we do intend to have more circles.
So you do not anticipate that you will ever do this again?
No. I mean, if the cases rise in the prison, then we would limit the programs that would be available to the inmates. And circles are one of them. But if the numbers continue to drop and remain at zero, then we would open up programming and circles would be able to, regain.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rep. Further questions? Senate Bill 2774. Thank you, everyone. Senate Bill 2777. First up, once again, we have PSD.
Hi, good morning again, Paxotani Department of Public Safety. We would stand on our written testimony in opposition of this measure and would be available for any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director. We have testimony from the Community Alliance on Prisons.
Good morning, Chair Ono, Vice Chair Ganadin, and members of the committee. Kat Brady testifying on behalf of Community Alliance on Prisons in strong support of this measure. We understand that PREA, the Prison Rape Elimination Act, is a law that was passed in 2003. It took the federal government until 2012 to actually create standards for that. So that is good, except that there is such an imbalance of power in prison that people do not report. The first thing that people learn when they're incarcerated is that retaliation is real, and they know that this happens. So many people do not report. Our suggestion would be, if the numbers appear to be low, maybe the department should take a closer look into what is actually happening inside. Policies and procedures are great. PREA is great, but it is only as good as it is implemented. So we urge you to pass this law. The government is mandated to protect the health and safety of people in their care and custody. Mahalo for this opportunity to testify. Aloha.
Thank you very much. 277 up next, we have the Women's Prison Project and the Hawaii Friends of Restorative Justice.
Hi, yes, Lauren Walker again, and we strongly also support this bill. And we do understand that maybe PREA is in existence and the state does do a very good job training people on PREA. They do have a very good training program for volunteers. I've been to it many times. It's excellent, very thorough. But we need to reinforce this because sex abuse continues to happen. Since I was a deputy AG back in the 90s, I did all the prison sex cases at the women's prison. I was the deputy attorney general, and we still have them over the years. I still read about it in the paper all the time. I mean, not all the time, but it comes up too much. So I think we need to reinforce it, and we should pass this measure. Thanks.
Thank you very much. We have testimony from 1, 2, 3, 5, 4, 5. We have testimony from 5 individuals on Senate Bill 2777, also in support. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify on Senate Bill 2777?
Yes, if I may, Chair.
Of course, yep. Carrie Ann, do we have your testimony by chance? Did you
I
submit
thought
it?
I submitted it, but with everything else, that one did not get, and I truly apologize, Chair.
Okay.
Good morning, Chair.
Yep, we're happy to have you, but be sure if you want to be part of the record to to send us something written so we can include it as part of this committee. But please go ahead. Good morning.
So thank you so much, Chair. Good morning, Chair Ono, Vice Chair Ganadin, members of the committee, Carrie Ann Shirota on behalf of the AC of Hawaii. We also offer comments in support of this measure. I think in terms of the big picture comment, we want to express the fact that the proposed bill is a harm reduction measure. Prohibiting pat searches by male staff and limiting placements of male staff when women are undressing is an incremental step towards reducing the harm against women. But the tremendous harm and trauma persists by the very nature of placing women in our jails and prisons. The rates that Kat spoke about and Lauren Walker, harassment, sexual abuse continues to happen for both men and women, but including women. What I would suggest and bring focus back to is that one of the greatest ways that we can reduce harassment, sex assault of women is by diversion and decarceration. That is the best strategy to reduce the number of women who are in our jails and prisons who do not need to be there if we invest in alternatives. I also would like to add that again, this incarceration is very costly. So let's put our money into reducing the number of women who are in our jails and prisons as a preventive measure so that there are not further headlines. Over the last few years, we've seen headlines in Maui where MCC inmates sexually assaulted by guard settles, 4 corrections officers on paid leave after inmates accused them of sexual assault at women's prison. There's been a number of headlines that we are aware of. And again, the best measure is to reduce the population. Thank you so much for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you very much. We have, are there any other further testifiers here to testify on Senate Bill 2777? Okay, members, questions? I'll jump in. Good morning, Director. Director Otani, thank you again for being here. You heard a couple people mention that perhaps folks are not reporting instances that should be reported. I'm curious to see if you have heard this and if perhaps there's anything you're doing to encourage people to feel safe when reporting sexual assaults in prison.
I think going through the PREA screening upon intake, all inmates are questioned whether they were sexually assaulted in prison or, you know, if they feel like there could be a potential victim. We do have a lot of reports at screening. Some of them are, you know, date back 10 years. I believe last week we had a PREA notification where the person said that 10 years ago he was sexually assaulted by an unknown assailant while in prison. So we do take the PREA situation very seriously within the Department of Public Safety. Inmates are encouraged to report. We do have training as part of the screening process, and we do provide a report to the but we do provide a report annually that reports out on our PREA incidents. Also like to say that, you know, all of our facilities are presently in compliance with PREA.
Okay, thank you for sharing. Members, further questions? Rep. Kobayashi.
For PSD, you're saying that you currently have policies and a federal law that addresses some of these matters in the bill. You're also saying that you have a workforce shortage. I'm wondering if you can tell us how difficult it is to implement what is proposed in the bill, or whether you are, say, already doing whatever is in the bill, what, 50% of the time or 80% of the time, or whatever.
Representative Kobayashi, it's hard to gauge as far as compliance to the bill because our workforce varies from day to day. We do have gender-specific posts that we're required to fill, basically female posts. And we're not only dealing with WCCC here, we're dealing with the rest of the jails throughout the system. So OCCC has gender-specific posts, MCCC, ACCC, KCCC. You know, anywhere we house females, we have gender-specific posts. So it's not a unique thing just for OCCC at this point. We do have shortages, and we're doing our best to fill these shortages. We made some concessions in trying to hire more females, but again, you know, we're an equal opportunity employer that needs to, you know, provide fair hiring practices. But I'm not sure if I answered your question.
No, it doesn't. I'm trying to get an idea of how serious the issue is. Are the proposed items in the bill being followed half the time or 90% of the time, or what? I mean, or is it they're not followed, period?
Well, it's followed, but I have Michael Hoffman, our institution division administrator here, who's a little bit more knowledgeable on the subject, and I would like for him to explain the situation.
Good morning, Representative Kobayashi, Chair, committee members, Michael Hoffman, Institutions Division Administrator. To try to answer Representative Kobayashi's question, I would say that it is a standard. We require it to be at 100% followed. Policies require the language in the federal bill or the federal law, as well as the proposed state law. When we do find that a complaint is made, it's fully investigated, and we take the appropriate corrective and/or disciplinary action necessary to remedy the situation. We do have specific investigators at each facility that's required to look into PREA complaints. We do the training that's required for everybody to be placed on notice. There's posters throughout the areas within the jails and prisons for reminders. And there's a PREA hotline that's private that can be utilized by an offender to actually make a complaint that is nobody else would know except that individual making the complaint, and then the PREA office that gets it. And those calls are also free. They can get on the phone and make that call. So I don't mean to sound negative, but it's kind of redundant to pass a state law that mirrors the federal law that is mirroring already what we have in policy and practice. We have many policies governing many behaviors. It doesn't mean we always get perfect compliance if people don't follow it, but we do take the appropriate action when it's discovered and known.
I think your response is off the mark. I don't get a feel for how serious the problem is. I mean, it's good to have policies. It's good to have training. It's good to have a complaint procedure. But as was previously testified, retaliation in the prisons may reduce complaints. So how often do you have pat-down procedures by a male? How often do males enter so-called women's areas? I mean, does this happen a lot or rarely?
I don't believe it actually happens. Policy also requires identification of male on the floor as well as female on the floor in the opposite case. I mean, it applies the other way as well when we have female officers working in a male housing unit. I have not seen this being consistently broken or violated. Henceforth, again, our expectation is 100% compliance. If we don't get that 100% compliance, then we'll take the appropriate action to deal with it. I mean, the complaints that have come forward and those that we've dealt with already is to some extent, I think, evidence that the system is working.
Further questions, members? Thank you, everyone. For those folks who are here for our 10:30 a.m. agenda, we'll hear this single bill, Senate Bill 3085, at the conclusion of this 10 a.m. agenda. In other words, we'll hear it at the end of, once we're done with this current agenda. Okay, moving on. We are on Senate Bill 3294. 3294. And first up, we have PSD, Senate Bill 3294, Reentry Planning Circles.
Good morning again, Max Latani, Department of Public Safety. We would stand on our written testimony offering comments on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have testimony from the Oversight Commission.
Morning again. We stand on our testimony and standing by for any questions should be arise. Thank you.
Thank you very much. BNF offers comments on this measure. The ACLU of Hawaii.
Aloha, good morning. Carrie Ann Shirots on behalf of the ACLU of Hawaii. We support this measure. Best practices dictates that reentry planning should start on day one of incarceration. And typically, unfortunately, that doesn't happen. But it should start happening, and it should happen as early before people exit our jails and prisons. When you do not have comprehensive reentry planning up front, it often can lead to homelessness, not having an identification that you need to obtain employment, housing, other benefits. And so starting that process early and partnering with community-based organizations to reach into the facility and start this process early is truly a win-win for the community. So again, let's start reentry practices early, and let's partner with the community that have the skill set, the desire to reach in and work in partnership with the Department of Public Safety for reentry planning. And its studies show that the more that you do this planning and provide for housing, employment, other types of opportunities, ID, it does decrease recidivism and enhances success. Thank you so much for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you. We have testimony from the Community Alliance on Prisons. In support, the Hawaii Substance Abuse Coalition in support, and testimony from the Women's Prison Project and Hawaii Friends of Restorative Justice.
Good morning, Lauren Walker again. And I'm just going to say three things really briefly. One, it's a really good idea that the Director of Public Safety, Max Otani, had to use this for diversion, but also we do have to have it for the people in prison, because there's people who it's called max out, where they've served their whole sentence and they need to make a plan. So in addition to people as a diversion, it should be used for people in prison. And like Carrie Ann Shirota said too, it should be right before you're even sentenced or anything like they do in federal court. The other thing I want to say is that we've been doing them on Zoom. So, PSD could utilize these. We do them on Zoom. We've been doing them for the federal court on Zoom for the last 2 years. And that's it. Thanks.
Thank you very much. We have testimony from half a dozen individuals, all in support of this measure. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify on Senate Bill 3294? Members, questions? Moving on, Senate Bill 3295. First up, we have PSD.
Hi, good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, Committee members, Max Otani again, Department of Public Safety. We would stand on our comments, written comments regarding this measure, noting that there's a close similarity to the bill requirements and to the duties and responsibilities of the current commission. And there may be some overlapping issues with this Women's Commission, because presently the Prison Oversight Commission covers all inmates under our custody. I'll be available for any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have testimony up next from the Oversight Commission.
Good morning, Chair. Mark Patterson again from the Hawaii Correctional System Oversight Commission. We stand by our testimony and are be standing by for further questions.
Thank you very much. BNF offers comments on this measure. We have testimony on Senate Bill 3295 from the Women's Prison Project.
And I'm representing the Women's Prison Project. I'm Jennifer Walsh, and we've submitted written testimony in support of this measure. And I want to highlight just a couple of things. One, it's important for this implementation commission to be in place, because we know there's a lot of gender-specific research that's coming out of both national and other states that is worth looking at and implementing here in Hawaii. Specifically, it's important to remember that women are just not smaller versions of men, and that the current system is designed almost exclusively for a man's experience. Women have a different pathway into the justice system. And they also have different recidivism risks. As shared earlier here, we know that women suffer greatly when they're separated from dependent children, and this actually can have a criminogenic or crime-producing effect. It increases recidivism, and it reduces the outcomes for children who are impacted by separation that may not be necessary. So by having an implementation commission that can evaluate ongoing research, we can improve outcomes not only for the women here in Hawaii, but also for the next generation by improving outcomes from their children. We do recommend one minor change to the law, or the proposed law, I should say, and that is to include a member of the Public Defender's Office as a representative on this commission. And we also want to reiterate that members should not be restricted to the County of Honolulu, but really represent the entire state. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We have testimony from an individual offering support. And that's all the testimony I have for Senate Bill 3295. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify on Senate Bill 3295? Members, any questions? Moving on, Senate Bill 2637. 2637, and first up we have PSD. Good morning again, Director.
Hi, good morning, Chair. The department will stand on a written testimony in support of this measure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have this Oversight Commission offering testimony.
Good morning again. We just Mark Patterson, Hawaii Correctional System Oversight Commission, stand on our testimony, and just want to reiterate that it's so important to have these community-based work furlough programs for our women in their reentry effort. I believe that this can be a positive thing as they're entering back into the community, that going from a structure back into the community, there needs to be programs that will allow them to reintegrate back into the community. So please stand by for any further questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have testimony from the Hawaii State Commission on the Status of Women in support. BNF offers testimony, offers comments. And we have testimony from the Women's Prison Project.
Yes, thank you. I just want to, Women's Prison Project is strongly in support of this bill. And I just want to reiterate once again that work furlough programs for women need to be different than work furlough programs for men. Work furlough programs for women are most successful when they include therapeutic interventions that address in a gender responsive manner the issues of women, trauma, relationships, parenting, substance abuse, and mental health needs. And I also would like to point out that the effectiveness of that kind of work furlough program for women has been beautifully shown to us by the Fernhurst YWCA's work furlough program, which includes all of those types of interventions and has demonstrated that gender responsive programs can achieve a low rate of recidivism among the graduates of that type of a work furlough program. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We've got testimony up next from the Hawaii Substance Abuse Coalition in support. Testimony from the Community Alliance on Prisons in support. And testimony from the YWCA.
Hi, this is Jen Wilbur with the YWCA. I'll just stand on our written testimony in strong support. Thank you.
You got it. Thank you. We have testimony from 7 individuals, all in support of Senate Bill 2637. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify on this measure?
Yes, Chair. This is Carrie-Ann Chirota. I did submit testimony, but it was late.
I've got it right in front of us. Thank you very much.
That's okay.
Please
Thank
go
you so
ahead.
much. Thank you. So Carrie-Ann Chirota, on behalf of the ACLU, we strongly support community-based work furlough programs. We want to emphasize the word community. While we understand that Department of Public Safety has some of their own in-house work furlough programs for the men Laumalka and also for the women at WCCC, that is not a substitute for literally working in partnership and collaborating with nonprofit organizations from Hawaii Island to Maui to Oahu with YWCA, because community-based nonprofit organizations are able to utilize services within the community much more quickly and rapidly to meet the needs of its residents. And I do want to highlight some metrics. This was a little outdated, but from 2020, there was some data on Fernhurst 5 years ago that said that of the 200 women who had completed, nearly 80% had a successful completion rate. Of those who completed the program between 2015 and 2019, the recidivism rate was 16%, compared to the 34% average statewide recidivism rate for women coming out of prison. And at the time, more than half of the women at Fernhurst were Native Hawaiian ancestry, and more than 3/4 of women. So in terms of utilizing public dollars, we want to strongly encourage that we continue to collaborate and partner and divert the money into community-based programs who can provide comprehensive reentry programming services. And also the bill as drafted, though, does not state a minimum amount of community-based beds. And I think that's something to further explore. Again, given the differences between the recidivism rates, my understanding is that in the past, the contract with YWCA was for a greater amount and to serve more women than it is currently, despite the fact that they have better outcomes. So I again want to encourage you to take a look at that and maybe perhaps put a minimum number of women who have opportunities for community-based furlough. And last, in terms of the annual reporting requirement, I would just maybe make the suggestion that included in the annual report that the nonprofits that are contracted through the RFP process, that they have an opportunity in their own perspective words to highlight successful outcomes of their programs, as well as any barriers they may face to providing comprehensive support services. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you very much. I'm sure we'll be hearing from you again. I just double check your mic. Perhaps something is rubbing against it. We're getting a little bit of feedback on our end, but we heard you loud and clear. Thank you very much. Is anyone else here wishing to testify on Senate Bill 2637? Members, any questions? Vice Chair. To Ms. Wilbur of the YWCA.
Hi.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the work that your organization does to assist formerly incarcerated women and their families. I had an opportunity to take a tour of the facility in the summertime, and I know several other members of the legislature did as well through the Women's Caucus. Can you describe why and some of the support that you folks provide that explains the significant reduction in recidivism for women, the kind of labor that you folks do?
I think it goes to just giving them time, one, just to acclimate, just back into society, just giving them a few weeks to just acclimate. I mean, the lights have been turned on and off for them for, their time incarcerated, just learning even just the basics of turning on your light, turning off the lights. Again, being free to kind of, walk about and not ask for permission necessarily, to build that resume, interact with people, work with your case manager to figure out your triggers and how to manage those on the outside. Just really acclimating to everyday society, things that we take for granted. I think that time alone and working one-on-one with people helps the women, and then helping them acclimate and get jobs, and not just a job, but try to find something that really interests them and a career, something they'll be interested in, so that they can continue to thrive outside the walls of WCCC.
And a quick follow-up. Of course, we're all really concerned about the children of incarcerated mothers. Can you explain some of the ways that the YWCA helps facilitate those interactions, makes sure that they're healthy, and supports sort of the ending of cycles of trauma and violence?
I think just as the other things, like acclimating them to and doing some healthy interactions with their family members through their case managers and things like that. Those things were halted a little bit because of COVID, but I know that they're trying to start them back up again. And really working with the case manager and working with trauma-informed care workers, all of those relationships, not just with children, but just with other family members, with spouses, significant others that have been distanced while they're away.
Thank you so much. Thank you, members. Further questions? Moving on. Thank you, everyone. Senate Bill 2640. First up, we have PSD.
Hi, good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, committee members, Max Latani, Department of Public Safety. We will be standing on our written testimony in support of this measure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have the University of Hawaii offering testimony in support. We have BNF offering comments. And we have testimony from the ACLU of Hawaii.
Ariane, she wrote on behalf of the ACLU of Hawaii. We strongly support this measure. We would like to highlight that of all the types of recidivism studies that are out in the universe, higher education is shown to actually result in the greatest decrease in recidivism. So the more educational opportunities we have for higher education and start that process inside, there are some other jails and prisons in other states that actually allow for associate's degrees. Some people even earn their bachelor's. We want to emphasize and put our money there. Is it cost effective? It is. The RAND Corporation did a study in 2016 that said those who participated in educational programs there was a 43% less likely to return to prison. Studies also show that prisons with college programs have less violence amongst incarcerated people. Children with parents with college degrees are more likely to complete college. And so also utilizing peer tutoring support, it is a best practice to utilize peer support even within the universities. I worked for a Title III Native Hawaiian program at UH Maui College, and we saw the positive impact of that at UH Maui College. It also works within the prison setting. So please support this measure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We have testimony from the Community Alliance on Prisons in support, the Hawaii Substance Abuse Coalition in support, and testimony from the Women's Prison Project and Hawaii Friends of Restorative Justice.
Hi, Lauren Walker again, thank you. And I'll just rely on our testimony unless there's any questions, but this program, we've been doing it this year and it's remarkable. We've had 11 women pass the GED and all of them, and we just finished this cohort of new tutors and they were the ones who, some of them passed the GED and they're all funneling into college. They're all going to Windward Community College too. So, and we have correspondence classes. So yes, this is a really good way to use our tax dollars. Carrie Ann Shirota from the ACLU is correct. Thanks.
Thank you. We have further testimony from 8 individuals, all in support of this measure, Senate Bill 2640. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify on Senate Bill 2640? If not, members, questions? Thank you. Moving on to Senate Bill 2373. We have first up PSD.
Chair, Vice Chair, committee members, Max Latani, again, Department of Public Safety. We would stand on a written testimony in support of this measure. I think this measure would serve the population that are completing their prison terms. Often they get released without anywhere to go. I think this would be a good measure to kind of cover up that gap. I'll be available for any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. We have further testimony from the Governor's Coordinator on Homelessness.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members. Scott Morishige, Governor's Coordinator on Homelessness and Chair of the Hawaii Interagency Council on Homelessness. I'll start my testimony offering comments and just emphasize the fact that the critical importance of starting some of this work prior to release, particularly in regard to issues related to identification documents. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
We gotcha. Thank you very much. We've got testimony from the Office of the Public Defender.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. James Habe with the Office of the Public Defender. We stand in on our written testimony in strong support of this measure. I'm available for any questions if necessary. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have testimony from DHS offering comments and testimony from the Chamber of Commerce of Hawaii. Good morning.
Morning. Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Trevor Abruzzo with Chamber of Commerce Hawaii, and feels good to be here in person.
Same.
But we want to stand on our written testimony in strong support of this bill and the other bills that are being heard in committee today on second chance policies and reducing recidivism. The business community is really getting behind hiring recently released individuals. We believe Project Reset and other policies are important to provide resources to allow them to get employment. So here to happy to answer any questions, and thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. It's good to have you here. We have testimony from BNF offering comments and testimony from the Women's Prison Project.
Yes, thank you. We'll stand on our written testimony in support of this measure. Thank you.
You got it. We have testimony from the Hawaii Substance Abuse Coalition in support, the Community Alliance on Prisons in support, testimony from Going Home Hawaii in support, and testimony from 5 individuals, also all offering support on Senate Bill 2373. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify on Senate Bill 2373?
Yes, Chair, it's Carrie Ann. I apologize. I did submit testimony, but it was late, so maybe it's not on your list.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you again. I just want to say it's very encouraging to hear that the department, Chamber of Commerce, community-based organizations are all in agreement that it's so important to provide comprehensive reentry planning and support services, because that would decrease recidivism, which means it decreases potentially new victims, new crimes, but also gives people opportunities to be contributing members of their families and our communities. So that's very, very encouraging. And I'd like to thank you for scheduling all of these bills for hearing. I would like to offer some comments. In terms of placing a new program, I guess maybe part of our concern is that we have some existing community-based programs. I would ask that you potentially consider placing some of the funding for reentry programs within the Department of Human Services, because they have experience, expertise in helping people to navigate and obtain housing assistance, SNAP, other types of benefits. So that could be potentially a pass-through organization to partner with community-based organizations that are already doing the work and also have the capacity to ramp up and serve more people in the community based upon their experiences. And I'd also like to highlight there's a number of programs in that, but this idea of having a reach-in model, I would like to expand. Currently, Waikiki Health Center has a Pu'uhonua prison project where they partner with the Department of Public Safety. They go inside and I meet with individuals to help them obtain services so that when they transition, to the extent that they can help them to start applying and getting healthcare insurance, you're eligible 30 days prior to release, helping to get documents. They can help with transportation, connecting them when they come out to doctors, behavioral health care. The other model, and I disclosed that I previously worked for Maui Economic Opportunities Best Reintegration Program. MEO closely worked with MCCC, the jail staff, where our case managers would go in, we would have access, we taught classes in the jail and partnered so that when people came out, that relationship, that rapport, that building of trust happened before someone left the jail doors. And there was a third-party evaluation conducted by Dr. Marilyn Brown of Hilo that showed that there was a significant decrease in recidivism for our clients. And at the time, we had a Department of Justice grant serving individuals convicted of Class A and B felonies, considered the most serious and violent crimes. There was a significant reduction. So it goes to show that all people should have second chances. And that when we work collaboratively together, we can build a safer and healthier community. Mahalo.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who wishing to testify on Senate Bill 2373? Members, questions? Vice Chair.
Mr. Morishige, with the Office of the Governor. Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for submitting testimony. I'm impressed by the coalition of advocates for this bill, including the Chamber of Commerce, the ACLU, and even your testimony. In your written testimony on page 1, you note a report that estimates that as much as 50% of individuals experiencing homelessness have a history of incarceration. I think that kind of speaks to how homelessness intersects with our criminal justice system. What do you think of the previous testifier's discussion of directing funds to the executive, most likely to be directed to the Department of Human Services, and the work that you do to decrease incarceration?
No, thank you for the question. I just want to know for the committee that my position is an appointed one. And so my term expires at the end of the governor's term in December. So if a program established within my office, the office probably would require additional time to transition it to a new coordinator who may be appointed. Our office is also primarily a policy office. So as mentioned in my testimony, we would also likely require additional staffing and resources to be able to implement this program. And then finally, I do acknowledge that there is a continuum of services provided by DHS. However, I think as mentioned in testimony in previous bills, it's really critically important to begin a lot of this work within the correctional facilities prior to release. So that would require coordination probably with Department of Public Safety, as well as organizations like the judiciary that have existing programs that provide some of these services within the correctional system. I hope that helps to clarify, and I'm happy to answer any further questions.
Thank you. Further questions, members? 2373. Okay, thank you. Oh, Rep. Kobayashi.
Just a comment for PSD and perhaps Women's Prison Project. It would be good to have some sort of rank order or high, medium, low priority list for these programs today and also in other bills, not on today's agenda. Today, House will be passing the budget, and in the budget are probably more than the average number of add-ons that appear in bills. So we know that some things will be on the table for budget discussions. Many of these bills will not be unless they're incorporated into the Senate budget. So that's a consideration for you folks in terms of tactics in getting money for your different proposals. Thank you.
Thank you. Further questions, members? 2373. Members and testifiers, we have about 30 more minutes and we have 6 more bills to go. As Rep. Kobayashi mentioned, we have a caucus this morning at 11:30 that was scheduled for the purpose of discussing that budget. So I do ask all the testifiers, we have heard many of these bills before. I appreciate you to summarize your testimony. Up next, 2639. First up, we have PSD.
Hi, good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, committee members. Max Sultani again, Department of Public Safety. We will be standing on our written testimony in support of this measure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have the Oversight Commission offering testimony.
Thank you, Chair Ono. When we look at the female offenders in the system today and their basic profile, with a high percentage of drug or drug-related crimes, we look at the lack of education, lack of employable skills, lack of positive relationships, high percentage of PTSD due to life experienced trauma that can also come in the form of verbal abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse. That's pretty much the profile of our adult female offender today. And what this risk assessment tool can help is really to define where the women are in each of these areas and provide the programming that is necessary for them to become resilient while they're incarcerated, as well as when in their re-entry efforts. Journey of healing takes time. Yeah. So a risk assessment tool that's being described here would be crucial in determining programming within the facility, but rather in addition to programming in the community upon reentry. I'll be around for any more questions on Representative Ono.
Thank you very much. We have testimony from the Women's Prison Project.
Yes, thank you. And I completely agree with what Mark Patterson just said. The other thing I want to say is that if you don't, this is really a critical issue, because if you don't have a good assessment, you don't have a good plan. So it needs to be an assessment that really addresses the specific needs of women. And again, we would like to emphasize that there are a number of researched and validated tools that could be of use. So we would suggest removing the word create from the bill, that it's not necessary to create a needs assessment. There are many out there that could be utilized. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have testimony from the Hawaii Substance Abuse Coalition in support and one individual in support. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify on Senate Bill 2639? Members, questions? Thank you. Up next, we have Senate Bill 2770, and we have testimony from PSD.
Good morning again, Chair Maxwell-County Department of Public Safety. We will be standing on our written testimony in support of this measure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The Oversight Commission also has testimony on this measure 2770.
Representative Ono, the commission will stand on its written testimony. Thank you.
You got it. Thank you. DHS offers testimony in support. BNF offers testimony, offers comments. The Community Alliance on Prisons offers testimony and support. The Opportunity Youth Action Hui offers testimony and support. Papaola Lokahi offers testimony, offers comments on this measure. The Women's Prison Project has testimony on this. Senate Bill 2770.
Aloha, Melina Ka'ulu Kukui, testifying on behalf of the Women's Prison Project. Since 2016, I have been a volunteer at the Women's Prison, and I established a hula halau, a hula school there. And I have seen firsthand the healing power of culture as foundational for women who have had so much pain in their lives. We've heard how disparate treatment has negatively affected Native Hawaiians, and we've also heard that women have different pathways in how they enter the system. I agree wholeheartedly with Commissioner Patterson that trauma is the prominent factor in justice-involved women, and often contributes to why they enter into the system in the first place. Once incarcerated, trauma affects their institutional behaviors, which in turn negatively impacts the eligibility for limited treatment and educational opportunities, while often extending their release dates. We also know that cultural historical trauma compounds individual trauma, and that cultural historical trauma, when present, needs to include healing and rehabilitation from trauma through cultural practices. So culture is foundational. So let me repeat that gender-specific, trauma-informed, culturally grounded services and opportunities for incarcerated women, overseen by knowledgeable providers, well-versed in Native Hawaiian principles, are key to equipping them with practical and emotional skill sets critical for post-release successes, which then in turn interrupts intergenerational trauma and recidivism. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We have testimony from the Center for Hawaiian Sovereignty Studies in opposition. And we have testimony from, it looks like half a dozen individuals offering support. And we have testimony from the ACLU of Hawaii.
Aloha Chair members, Carrie Ann Chirota on behalf of the ACLU, we strongly support this measure. We would like to provide and highlight the backdrop that there are still to this day stark racial disparities in our criminal legal system at every entry point, from the front end to people being revoked on probation and parole through all entry points. And we cannot forget that. I would also like to highlight that over the last probably 30, 40 plus years, literally in my hand, I have reports from the 1980s, 1990s, 2000 that continues to reiterate that Native Hawaiians are disparately represented in our carceral system. These reports also include recommendations that we include cultural-based programming and practices by practitioners who are respected and revered in our community. So it is about time that we implement these recommendations to reduce the number of Native Hawaiians who are in the system. And also I would like to add that these practices, and from hula halau that Kumu just spoke of, to other practices that MEO best program in the past, they also had a hula halau for a number of years at Maui Jail. We also did cultural restoration programs, not only with individuals who are incarcerated, but also as they're transitioning into the community with their ohana. You could imagine generations of people working in the lo'i, generations of ohana working for reforestation beyond Ulupalakua. Also Hawaiian language classes, reading the Queen's story by Hawaii's Queen, her imprisonment. These were practices of empowerment that assisted with healing and decreasing recidivism. So please, this is beyond time. We need to support these practices. And we saw in our program, it was open to all individuals, even if they were not of Native Hawaiian ancestry. But it makes a difference in people's lives and healing. And please pass this measure. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify on Senate Bill 2770? Members, any questions? Thank you, everyone. Moving on to Senate Bill 2772. First up, we have testimony from the judiciary offering comments. We have testimony from BNF offering comments. And we have testimony from PSD 2772, Furlough and Drug Treatment Program.
Good morning, Chair. We will stand on our written testimony offering comments on this measure. Thank you.
You got it. Thank you. We have further testimony from the Women's Prison Project.
Yes, thank you again. We are in strong support of this bill. I've already testified today about the negative impact on children of having their mother incarcerated. So investing in these programs is not only an investment in diversion from prison and reduction of recidivism, it's also an investment in the welfare of the children. I would like to note that it would be good to delete the word create from the bill, where it's that because the judiciary does not create or wish to create programs, but contracts with community-based programs. And again, I would point out that the furlough programs are actually funded through the Department of Public Safety, not the judiciary. And so it would be important to consider that when appropriations are made. We strongly are in support of this because it's really been proven over and over again that many women who are incarcerated do not need to be and could be very successfully rehabilitated in community-based programs with court supervision. So thank you.
Thank you very much. We have testimony from the Community Alliance on Prisons offering support, the Hawaii Substance Abuse Coalition also in support, and testimony from half a dozen individuals, all in support of Senate Bill 2772. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify on Senate Bill 2772?